Hello, welcome to Forest Readers. I'm Mary Dubard, and today we're going to be hearing from Garrison Keeler, and we're going to be hearing about the Lake Superior Canyon Project. Yes, yes, he's just had his 82nd birthday. Well, it's been a quiet week in Lake Wobegon, my hometown, way up there on the prairie. It's been such a beautiful winter. It's been the most beautiful winter I can remember in my entire life. It's been cold and white and bright. And then we woke up on Thursday to see the most beautiful sight of ice trees. Every limb and every branch and every twig coated with ice shining in the sunlight. The most beautiful sight in nature, ice trees in Minnesota in January. Because we don't have mountains, you know, we don't have an ocean, and our forests are kind of scraggly. And we do have lakes, of course. And our lake's okay, Lake Wobegon. There's nothing wrong with it. Could be worse. But there are 10,000 lakes in Minnesota. We get tired of them sometimes. But what would be a big novelty in Nevada is nothing in Minnesota lakes. There was something in the news about selling some water to some of the lakes to the Saudis. That is the water in the lakes. I was talking about it, in fact, on Tuesday night down with some guys at the Sidetrack Tap. I went in there, stayed for a while, just sitting in there. I know it's shocking to some of you to think of me going into a place like that and drinking beer. And it's shocking to me too when I go in and I look around and I see those dimmed, ruined forms leaning against the bar. And I think to myself, my, how you have fallen to walk into an establishment like this. But then you stay around for a while, and after a while, you're in a place like that where you don't look down on them anymore. They seem sort of a lot like yourself. And you come to feel kind of a brotherly love for those people leaning against that bar. I know I do. And that's just what the Bible says we should feel, isn't it? Some people are able to feel brotherly love in the daylight. And others of us, it's better in the dim light under a general anesthetic. Anyway, there were 5 or 6 of us around the bar. We were drinking some beer, and one of them said, "Yeah, that's the plan. The Saudis want to come in and buy some lakes here in Minnesota." And they only wanted about 10 lakes or so, and we got 10,000. The problem, of course, is transportation because you'd have to build a pipeline to each lake and there'd be hearings galore. Have you ever been to Minnesota? Oh, yes, there'd be hearing and it'd be a mess. So everybody came up with the idea we'll sell you Lake Superior. Lake Superior. Now, first of all, it's the best lake in America, as the name indicates. And so you get a higher price for that water. And there's more water to sell. This is the largest freshwater lake in the world. There'd be no transportation problem at all. You just bring those big old Saudi water tankers up the St. Lawrence Seaway, and they'd come right up into the lake. They'd pump themselves full. You wouldn't need a pipeline until you were down to the last couple of 100 feet of Lake Superior. You could pump that thing right out, and the money we would realize from selling the water in this lake, we'd pay for everything in the state for the next 25 years. Somebody figured this out. Now you say, well, what would we do with the big hole in the ground? Well, that's the beautiful part of the idea, don't you see? We have this beautiful canyon, this incredible canyon, a mile deep in its deepest places, deep trenches, a quarter mile running through the thing, rock formations, fantastic cliffs. You got yourself a tourist attraction. Finally, in Minnesota, finally, a real tourist attraction that would outdraw the Grand Canyon because the Superior Canyon would be bigger. It's bigger, 360 miles long, 140 miles wide at its widest point. This would be so great. You got a lake. Who do you get? You get fishermen. That's no good for the economy. Fishermen. They're just a bunch of gloomy guys in t-shirts. They come in and you're lucky if you can sell them a six-pack of beer, white bread, and a little bologna. They take it out in the boat, they're gone. And that's you can't support on it if you stay in fishing. You draw fishermen into a lake, you're going to get a lot of Norwegians, and those people are so tight with their money, it squeaks when it comes out of them. But you get yourself a canyon, and you're going to draw photographers. Now, they're the tourists you want because photographers will bring their families with them and they spend money. These are the people you want to attract to Minnesota, the photographers. Not only would it be bigger than the Grand Canyon and more beautiful, but there'd be things we would have in the Superior Canyon that they don't have in the Grand Canyon. For example, islands. We pump the water out of Lake Superior, and you've got those Apostle Islands there, and they become the Apostle Mountains. Great high mountains, bare on the sides, and then flat on the top with uh, trees and cabins on them. And right up there off the coast would become the north rim of the Superior Canyon. People would come to see this. And the other thing that you're going to have with the Superior Canyon, you're going to have scenes of death and destruction. Now, people are interested in this, but when you have the Superior Canyon, you've got sites of shipwrecks. The sides of the Superior Canyon won't be as steep as the Grand Canyon. We'll be able to put roads down into there, and they'll drive this route from Duluth up to Thunder Bay. They'll be looking at all the wrecks on the ore boats down along the floor of the canyon. Now, people are interested in that. Don't tell me they're not. They are. I know. I'm in show business and I know people. Part of my job as the host of this show is to conduct tours of the World Theater. I sit right down there in the front and I talk to them about the architecture of this theater and its history as a legitimate theater and a movie house and a concert hall. I'll tell them about the arch right over there, the proscenium, which was taken from a design that was written on the back of a napkin by Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald at the White Bear Yacht Club in 1921, and they were waiting for the dance to start. They drew that proscenium. And people sit down there and they listen to this lecture and they just doze off. Their heads are rolling around. You can just bet on it. But then I come to the part about death and destruction, and they wake up right away. And I say, and right there in that seat, right there in the fourth row on the aisle in the orchestra, that's the place where Mary Frances Bloomer was sitting on April the 16th, Saturday the 16th, 1913. She was sitting next to her lover, Dr. Charles Danner, DDS. And they were watching a matinee performance of Lilac Time. They were sitting right there in those seats when her husband, Herman Bloomer, came down the aisle. He came in that door right back there. And he came down the aisle with a snub-nosed .38 revolver in his right hand. And as he came down and he stood right on that spot right over there, he looked down and saw the heads of his beautiful young wife and her periodontist paramour. And sitting there, their heads were outlined against the light from the music stands of the orchestra here in the pit, and he could see they were exchanging a soulful kiss. Her dentist lover looked like he was conducting an oral examination with his tongue. And Herman came down that aisle and he stood right there beside Mary Frances. He aimed that snub rose .38 revolver at her head, and then he realized he didn't have a .38 revolver in his hand. In his anguish, in his anger leaving home, he grabbed a pair of snub-nosed pliers. And he yelled, "Pliers, pliers." And the audience thought he said, "Fire, fire." And they tore for the exits. And 14 people were killed that Saturday afternoon, right over there and right over here. And among those that were killed was Herman Bloomer himself. He died even though he was the one who yelled pliers. He panicked and he died. But Mary Frances and her dentist lover 6 months later became husband and wife, and they entered into a long and unhappy marriage. As a result of this, there was a great public outcry about safety in theaters in downtown and how wide should the aisles be, and what shade of red should the exit signs be, and should there be a fire drill before and during the every performance. Now, theater owners didn't want to do that because having a fire drill interferes with the light-hearted mood that you know people have when they come to see a show. The debate went on and on for 3 months, and then the legislature got into the debate. They're here in St. Paul, and they've been holding us back for years. And they got in on this, of course, and they argued about it. How big should the exits be? And the debate went on. And the problem with democracy is that it attracts a lot of people who have time to kill. And so downtown St. Paul was closed for 3 months. It happened right here in downtown St. Paul, has never recovered from this. Those 3 months gave Minneapolis the edge that it needed to push ahead. Over in Minneapolis, they are full of confidence and they are full of investment. And so Minneapolis became the dominant city in Minnesota, and St. Paul lagged behind, caught up in this morbid debate about how big the exits ought to be, and it's never been the same. Our history changed on account of that. It happened right here in those seats, fourth row, first seat, and second seat. St. Paul, a city of poets and a city of storytellers, lost out to Minneapolis, a city of insurance brokers and dime store clerks. And our history changed on account of right here, what happened right here. It would have been better for everybody if Herman had remembered to bring that 38 snub nose pistol. And if he'd shot him, it would have saved 12 lives. And the history of our state would have been different. Now, you see, this is the sort of thing that people are interested in. This is what people are going to come to Minnesota to see in the Superior Canyon. Now, I was up there at the sidetrack tap. I was talking to these guys about this. We've been there for a while. They're great guys. I love those guys. I told them that too. I said, I love you guys. I love you, and I'm going just to say it. Other people may think you're a bunch of drunks in this town, but you're dreamers to me. You've got a vision for this state, and it's what this state needs. These big ideas, that's when I switched from beer to scotch. I said, Wally, I said, give me a scotch, straight up. Straight up. He said, well, sure, I'll give it to you straight up. I'll lay it right in your lap. I said, give me some of that scotch. And so, but it took him a while to find the scotch. It was up on a shelf. It was behind a lot of other bottles that was back in there. I said, is this 12-year-old scotch? He said, hey, I've had this since 1952. He said, it's still half full, and there we are. I was drinking 40-year-old scotch with my pals, and we're thinking about how this can change Minnesota. Sell the water to the Saudis. We don't need it. We need a canyon. They're going to have casinos up there. This is going to be big. And you know what the biggest attraction in that Superior Canyon is going to be? It's going to be the site down in the canyon where the Edmund Fitzgerald sank, 1975. Gordon Lightfoot wrote a song about it. Maybe that ship made that ship famous. That ore boat went down. People are going to come from all over the country. Go see that boat. It's lying there in two pieces. When we get the water out, it'll be on a sort of a plateau. It will be flooded with light from footlights. There'll be big hotels all around, thousands of rooms in the Fitzgerald Hotel, the Fitzgerald Casino. We're going to have the biggest casino right there on the site of the Edmund Fitzgerald wreck because gamblers are superstitious people. They are. They know other people's misfortune is what brings you good luck. They'll come to this casino by the thousands. This will be the biggest casino in America. It's going to be bigger than Caesar's Palace, bigger than the Sands in Vegas. All the high rollers are going to come in here, there to the Superior Canyon, and all the big acts from Vegas will come up there. High rollers, lots of money, a lot of money. We're going to get rid of the stereotype of Minnesota as a state of sort of glum Swedes sitting around in dark kitchens, not talking like in the early black and white Bergman movies. And we're going to be a state of glamour and a state of wealth if we get the water out of the Lake Superior. That's all you've got to do. And it will change things in this state. All of our taxes will be paid for at least 25 years. Everything will be rich in the state. It's going to be great. We'll be known as a state of card sharps and their bingo babes, flashy babes, some of them in their mid 60s, but hey, operations they've got nowadays. And mid 60s can be early 30s. And we'll be able to afford those operations when we get all that money from the casinos and the hotels in the Superior Canyon. I said to these guys, I said, I love you guys. I said, Wally, I said, scotch for everybody. I'll buy scotch for all of them. Well, I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have done it. That was a mistake. These guys are beer drinkers. But they, of course, didn't want to make me feel bad. So they sat and they drank that scotch, and they were about 5 or 6 of them. I forget who it was, but there were 5 or 6 of them there. They drank that scotch kind of slowly and thoughtfully, like it was chemotherapy. And then I said, what's holding up the Superior Canyon? And they said, it's the legislature. Legislature's holding it up. They want an impact study. Impact, I said, anybody can see what the impact would be. Great. Bringing money and jobs and everything in this state. How can they do this? No, they're sitting down in St. Paul. They're debating this thing. They're killing it just like they killed downtown St. Paul on account of the guy coming down the aisle with a pair of pliers. They're doing it to us. They're holding it up. And I was kind of holding up the wall at this point in the sidetrack tap. But I sat up and I looked around and I said, damn politicians. A damn politician. I knew then we were never going to get this canyon, folks. This is never going to come. We each of us got up from our stools, each in our own way. We went to the door. We opened the door, and the cold air hit us like a board. We walked out, and we knew right then that we're never going to be rich. We're never going to be good looking. It's always going to be this way. And that's the news from Lake Wobegon, where all the women are strong, men are good looking, and the children are above average. Every last one of them. So, so that was written in 1993. And since I'm not out of time yet, this is something I heard just a month ago on Garrison Keeler. He is still alive. I get something on my email, a podcast, except it's in writing. It's not a pod. But is called Standing Up for the Age of 81. Now, this comes from July the 5th of 2024. You can think back just a month ago what was going on. You'll get the context of what this is about. And the title of it is Standing Up for the Age of 81. He since had a birthday. So the age of 81 has come under close scrutiny recently. And as an occupant, I should say a few words in its behalf. Most people are younger than 81. Some are much younger. When they see me coming on stage, they're impressed that I'm upright and mobile. I walk to the microphone, I speak entire sentences into it that apparently makes sense. I don't doubt that some maybe wonder if I will drop dead. Will their ticket be refunded at the box office, or will they have to go through a very complicated procedure online? But what I say makes sense, as do my various hand gestures. Magnanimity, open hands. Profundity, index finger. Thoughtfulness, hands pressed together in a steeple. Thumbs up, and they relax and attend to what I have to say. A man of 81 has got quite a bit to say. It's too late to try to be hip. Back in my 20s, I was hip, and I wrote bad poems about the fascination of unreality, the beauty of cloudiness, and the mystery and longing for meaning that I thought were beautiful. Now I know that honesty and compassion and kindness are beautiful, and there's no mystery about that. Some people get to the age of 78 without knowing this. Some people know it by 18 or 21. I was 40 when I quit smoking. I did it because smoking made me feel bad. This realization should have happened earlier. I quit drinking because early mornings is my best time of the day and hangovers are a knapsack of rocks. I can well do without them, but I was in my 50s when this dawned on me. Duh. Octogenarians have less need to search for themselves. They can pay more attention to what's around them. You stand at a lectern listening to a man of 78 at another lectern claim to be greater than Washington, Jefferson, or Lincoln, claiming that he won an election by a landslide, though he got fewer votes. This is truly amazing. If you were 21, you might think, well, this is what politicians do. When you're 81, you know this is an absurdity, and politicians mostly stay away from the absurd. They don't campaign by yodeling while riding unicycles and carrying ferrets on their shoulders and wearing a cap with a revolving red light. They try to make sense. Longevity is getting longer thanks to medical progress. More people are hitting their 90s, which means that you can do dumb things well into your 70s and still have time to recover. Donald Trump could still be a decent, modest human being and learn to tell a joke. I truly believe this. I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, a good neighborhood for an old man. Everything is within walking distance. The drugstore, the grocery, the dental hygienist. It's 10 blocks to church, which is long enough to think about what needs to change in my life. When I walk in, I feel welcome. And standing on a corner, waiting for the light to change, I easily strike up small talk with the woman pushing the stroller next to me. Something as simple as, beautiful day today, and she will agree. I like this ease of familiarity. I see progress all around me. The cracker aisle at Trader Joe's has 100 varieties, whereas we used to have 5. Soda, Graham, Cheez-Its, Animal, and Goldfish. Dozens and dozens of takeout possibilities, where once we only had chow mein, tacos, burgers, and pizzas. The linguistic innovations, my generation didn't even have the word totally. We found things sort of interesting. We didn't have awesome back then. We just had cool. But recently I saw bubblegum flavored toothpaste in Walgreens and also cucumber soap. It's nothing to a youngster, but to me it's astonishing. I'm old enough to remember horse-drawn hay wagons, outhouses, coal-burning furnaces, and my grandma's reminiscence of the Chicago World Fair of 1893. I saw Albert Woolson, the last living Civil War veteran, riding in a parade. I saw Rod Carew steal third and then steal home base. I once saw the Everly Brothers sing Precious Memories. But what is most memorable to me is the kindness of my teacher, Estelle Shaver, when I was 6, and the kindness of my mother and my aunts, and the 2 men, Marvin Granger and Bill Kling, who hired me for jobs in radio despite poor grades and vast inexperience. Human kindness overflowing. This is what I think about as I walk those 10 blocks on Sunday morning to church. The Lord is good, and his mercy endureth forever. Well, not like Garrison Keeler. Oh, that was from that thing I got on my email, which is called Garrison and Friends or something like that. And it's free. You can subscribe to it. They allow you to say if you want to be a paying member, click here, but you don't have to. So I haven't.